having trouble starting.
It says it's live.
Looks good.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Of course.
Hello, and welcome back to week 2. We're at it again. This is Family Talk with Becca Toups, coming at you live from the Calvary Albuquerque campus. Thank you, and hi to everybody who's jumping on and joining us through Facebook, through YouTube, and through Instagram Live. How's everybody doing out there? Yeah, me too. It's been a week. I mean, I feel like the dust is kind of settling, and we're all settling into the reality of what this is really looking like. That we are, hi Alyssa, that we are just, this is the new normal, you know? All the like nerves and butterflies have kind of settled down a little bit, even though I think there's a lot of anxiousness still just because of all the uncertainty. But as we're realizing what this is going to look like, what our family life looks like, and we're kind of settling into our rhythms, with our children, with our spouses, with what our jobs are looking like, working from home in this new environment, or even some of us lack of jobs. Hi, Shayna. We're just, you know, it's a weird, strange time for all of us, but specifically for the family unit. But like we kind of talked about last week with Nate, there really is a wonderful silver lining through this too. The silver lining is the slowdown, the lack of that busyness. And I think as a mom myself, it's always been my excuse, like, oh, I'm so busy. I'm busy. I don't know. How are you? I'm busy. Well, that excuse has basically been taken away. Granted, the busy looks a little bit different now, don't you think? But it's a different kind of busy. We're keeping ourselves busy, I think, to kind of keep our minds occupied. But what that really creates space for is more intentional parenting, I think, and more intentional relationships, and more time for us to slow down and show those kindnesses and get down to the root of what's really important. So I think that's just wonderful, just the intentional element. And that's something I just really want to focus, because it's so easy just to let the time go by, be like, I don't know, I was overwhelmed. I gave my kid an iPad. I was on Instagram. I did some chores, and that's the end of the day. Or we were so busy bussing ourselves back and forth to practices, which we don't have anymore, that I didn't really sit down and spend that intentional time and make those moments really count. Because as we always hear kind of the adage that the days are long, but the years are short. And right now I feel like sometimes the days are a little long too, don't you think? And this is giving us that time to really be intentional and get down on the floor and play with our children, whereas we wouldn't before, or sit down and do a puzzle, or, you know, even helping them with their homework. Before, I felt like I was even sometimes too busy to really do that, and we're able to have those moments with our children. So just really enjoying the time, I feel like, is something that we're going to look back at this. And even though this is a strange time, and this is a pandemic, and this is a terrible thing that's certainly happening in our nation, in our world, in our neighborhoods, and in our homes, it's also wonderful. We want to be able to look back and think about the goodness and the sweet moments that have come out of this time. Alyssa's asking, what's my best tip for keeping your 4-year-old busy? Whew. Lots of things. Tasking her. I have a 4-year-old daughter who's got a lot of energy. She's really rambunctious. She'll kind of does her own thing. If she asks me for a snack and I don't get it right away, I'll come in the kitchen and she's standing on the counter getting something for herself, where I have to be like, okay, whoa. So keeping her busy, tasking her with things, asking her to be my helper. Hey, will you go get your brother and sister and tell them it's time for this? And she loves having those jobs, having them help with unloading the dishwasher. And yes, it takes a little bit longer sometimes, but what do we have but that time to take a little bit longer and slow down with our children? Whereas before, you know, she wanted to help me last night. I was making dessert and she wanted to help. And it did. It took about 20-30 minutes longer than it probably would have. But how special was it to watch her learn to crack an egg? And she got shells in it and we dug the shells out and it was fine. So having them come along and help. But like if you're in an instance where maybe you have to be working from home, keeping your child busy, giving them some resources, downloading some educational apps so they can sit down and use that iPad, but make that time benefit for themselves and be something that they're getting something from, not just watching YouTube or Netflix or whatever. There's a lot of great things. And even what I'll do is I'll go in to YouTube Kids, and I'll search a specific topic, and then I'll say, okay, you need to watch this video and you can't change it, okay? And you can kind of lock the iPad, and she'll sit, and that will buy me maybe 20 minutes so I can make a couple calls or do something that I need to get checked off my to-do list. And then also, there's printables that you can get on Pinterest. You can find things through the teacher resources and things like that, and printables. Coloring is another thing that really my big kids, my little kids, even my husband loves to sit down and color. So getting those things out and allowing your children, like, here, I want you guys all to sit and color, and it kind of calms their mind. Coloring is a new kind of a trend for adults, that it helps to ease anxiety, because you kind of stop, you slow down, you breathe, and you focus on what's right there in front of you. So those are just some fun ideas that I have. Keeping your 4-year-old. If anybody else has any, feel free to drop them in the comments and let me know. Hi, Brandon. So, intentional parenting. There's some questions. I put some questions out to some of my followers this week, and things that they wanted to hear about and hear me discuss on Family Talk. And so I wanted to first address the COVID crisis and ask you guys how you're talking to your kids about this. And obviously it's going to vary depending on the age of your children. Whereas talking to a 14-year-old is going to look a lot different than talking to a 4-year-old. The tone and things like that. I listened to a really great podcast this week, and it really discussed how you can sit down and rather than sitting your child down and unloading maybe your anxieties on them and telling them everything that's going on in the world or things that you're seeing in the news, sit down with them and first just ask them, investigate. Hey, so what have you heard about this? What have you heard about COVID? And then just listen, allow them to talk. And they're not in school anymore, but the kids that have, social media or are talking on video games or talking with their friends may be hearing some other things that aren't true. You may get a lot of information that they have that really isn't true, and you can kind of alleviate a lot of those worries and those anxieties for your children. So investigating first and asking them what they've heard, and just listening to that, and then addressing those things, telling them what's really going on at age appropriate level, and then circling back around and then asking them, now what's true? So they can kind of reiterate that back. You can make sure that those truths really sunk into their heart and kind of alleviate some of their concerns. For my 4-year-old, she's just really confused. Why can't we go to the park? Why can't we go into Chick-fil-A? Why can't we do all these things? She misses her preschool. And talking to her, and I've just kind of told her, hey, the world has a sickness right now. There's a sickness, and we want to stay home and allow the world to get better and allow the people who are out there helping to, thank you, James. That's okay. Allow the people who are out there to do their jobs and to help the people that are really sick. So, and we talk about our grandparents and we talk about our friends, and we stay home because we don't want those people to get sick and because we love them. So really just kind of quieting their little hearts and reassuring them. It doesn't have to be a big scary thing. But really just kind of speaking to them on a level that they can really understand it. A Fresh Design says, I use the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and how they trusted God and didn't follow the crowd to my 11-year-old. That's really good too. Breaking it down and making it digestible for your child at their level. But this is really when our faith gets feet. This is when we're able to show our children what that looks like at home. For me, I heard a really great quote this week, and it said, we're not able to be Jesus to our children, so we don't always have to have it together, but we are able to show them us needing Jesus, especially in these times and in these trials. So that can be really impactful when they see us like, hey, mommy's scared because I'm not sure what's going on, but I trust God. He's going to take care of us. We'd really try to hit home with memory verses in our house. And so we do a different one, and we have some age appropriate ones for my younger daughter, but then also for the big kids. But the John 16:33 has really been one that we've been resonating and working on memorizing this week. John 16:33, these things I have spoken to you, that you may have peace in me in the world, but you will have trials. But take heart, I have overcome the world. And that's just really, that's something we put up on the chalkboard, we put in bold, I have overcome the world. And we get to say that, excited with the kids, I have overcome the world. God's overcome COVID, he's overcome this, so we don't have to be worried, and we can take heart. So just really refreshing our children. Hi, Wild Roseberry. Let's see, we've got any questions over here, managing a couple different pieces of technology. Another question, it's a good question, how I handle sibling rivalry, or how we handle in our house. And not that we have this locked down by any means, with 4 children, different ages, hormones and different temperaments. There's always something crazy going on in our house. Someone's, slamming a door or fighting. And I just feel like with everybody being in close quarters, that's really being amped up. All relationships are kind of on edge right now. So there's a lot of different things. In my heart, I was raised in a big family. I'm the oldest of 5, and I've witnessed some real good ones. Lots of sibling rivalry, lots of fighting within the home. But in my heart, I like to remember that is really preparing my children for conflict later. Even though it's not fun, it's unpleasant, it's terrible, but allowing my kids within reason to work out their sibling rivalry and their frustrations allows them and prepares them and gives them the tools for later on in life, so that they can, maybe they're going to have a coworker that they have a disagreement with, they don't get along with, or a boss they don't love, that kind of thing. Allowing those kids kind of to work out and to talk through and to resolve their issues kind of on their own to a level, and I will certainly step in if need be, when it gets to physical fighting, or if there's just too much strife. But I also encourage teamwork. So what I do sometimes, if my kids are fighting my big kids, I've even resorted to putting them both in the corner, make them hold hands and be quiet, and they have to be quiet. And if they argue and bicker back and forth, then okay, we add 5 more minutes, or okay, we add 2 more minutes, and they have to stand there and kind of have that peace and be quiet and work together. But what we did this week, my 2 middle children, who tend to kind of have conflict the most, I have a 12-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl. They have just constant conflict. There's something, they're taking each other's stuff, they're arguing over how they looked at each other, how the other one talked about the other from the other room. I tasked them this week, Friday, I was just kind of burnt out. I was burnt out on COVID homeschooling. I was just kind of fried. And what I did is I tasked them with coming up with a news program. They're working on a good news show, so they had to kind of get the iPad out, do some research on good news. It kind of kept them off the bad news, and I certainly monitored them while they're on the iPad just looking things up. And they're writing their own stories, they're producing it, they're getting ready to film it, and they're going to present it to the family in this coming week. So that's been something that's really kept them kind of working together, because they have to have teamwork. I don't want them fighting over it, but they also have to produce that and worry about the research they have to put into it. So it's kind of a creative writing element, and it's also something that's passing the time for me and keeping them from fighting and everything else. So that's certainly been something that was helpful around our house. But sibling rivalry it's just part of growing up. I joke that I don't know what I would have done if I was raised as an only child, because of the element of just working things out with your siblings, understanding different dynamics and different personalities and how you interact with those different personalities. So moms, just want to encourage you out there, even though it's really exhausting and it's frustrating, stick with it, because it's definitely going to be worthwhile, and it helps your kids in the long run, even though it's really, man, I just feel like I want to pull my hair out sometimes with all the fighting in my house. So let's see, we have any other questions on here? The other thing, speaking about COVID and talking with your children and addressing that, is that you need to manage your own anxiety and your own stress through this, so that you can turn around and help your children. So we touched on last week on self-care, and I think as parents that's really important, especially in this time. And that doesn't mean checking out and taking an entire spa day, but it can just mean, waking up 20 minutes early and making sure you get your quiet time so you're setting yourself off from the right foot for the rest of the day, because really you are starting off the entire house. So if you wake up in a bad mood and you aren't having your quiet time and aren't taking those moments, then it can really impact your kids. And like we talked about last week, I like to do that with our family too. We have breakfast, and if you want to pull up, I think we can pull up, I have my schedule. Last week Nate asked me a couple times about our family's schedule, and this is just what works for me in my household in the phase of life that we're in. We have preteens, and then I have a 4-year-old, and this works to keep our house on track. And it's important to have a schedule, but have a loose schedule. To hold on to it softly. So if this doesn't work out, it's going to be okay. If we need to call an audible, if you will, and make some changes to the day, that's just fine. But this is my COVID schooling schedule. For those on Instagram, I'm going to pull it up on here, and I'll post it on my Instagram stories. But it starts out, we wake up and I give my kids a little bit of time to just kind of get themselves together, wake up. Not everybody wakes up in a great mood, and I've been a lot more lenient these days. We don't have to be up at 6:30. That doesn't work in our house. Those of you with smaller toddlers, that may still be what your life looks like. You may be woken up every single day at 6 a.m. getting ready to go, but we wake up, let the kids make their bed and put their pajamas away, and they have a little bit of tech time while they're eating their cereal or whatever's going on. And make sure everybody's up approximately before 9. And then from 9 to 10, we have breakfast and devotions, so that looks different also. Sometimes the kids are reading separately, sometimes we're doing devotions as a family together, just based on what's going on. And I kind of call it, depending on how everybody kind of woke up in their moods. If they're all a little bit still cranky or anything like that, I'll just have them read individually. But at least once a week, I like to do kind of a family devotional, and sometimes let one of the children choose what story and then present it and tell it in their words. And then it kind of gets the engagement going and opens the conversations a little bit more, rather than me just trying to line them up on a couch, or my husband trying to line them up on the couch and read at them. That's always, I think, sometimes a recipe for disaster. Like I said last week, certainly managing your expectations for those moments, because there's going to be some hard times for sure, but sticking with it, because it really is important that your children see you living that out, and that's the reality in your house, that you're keeping those devotions going and making that kind of the backbone of your house. So allowing your children to see that in action and what that faith looks like in person. So that is first and foremost. Then we move on and we do some exercise. And circling back over to self-care, that's my self-care for sure. Because again, if I exercise, I'm going to be a lot less likely to kind of spiral and get into myself and get depressed or be sad or kind of mopey. It's going to give me a lot more energy to kind of tackle the day, and it also gets the kids' energy out a lot. If you think about it, children really are having like 3 recesses a day at school, and at home, are they really getting that much exercise? No. Well, then it's a wonder they can't sit still, while we're trying to get our homeschool work done, or they're fighting or bickering. But if I send my kids out to jump on the trampoline, or if we do a little mini boot camp, we get a little bit of exercise in, that's fantastic. Yesterday, my kids were kind of bickering a little bit, and what I did is I had the 3 older kids, I had them go for a run. They took a jog. I set a timer at the house, and I said, all right, I want you guys to stay together. That's important. We're not trying to beat each other, but I want you guys to go for a jog around the neighborhood and a 15-minute run. And it was really wonderful. They came back a lot more calm. It was good because they got a lot of energy out, and then they were able to just really focus a little bit more once they got inside the house, and there was less bickering and things like that. So that's another idea for exercise. Does anybody else have any family exercise or anything that you guys are doing? You could drop that in the comments here. I love to hear other ideas. I think some of the best ideas that I've had have certainly been things that I've taken from other moms that I've seen online, or other moms that I'm friends with, and kind of adapted that to fit what our life looks like, and making that work. So something that we touched on last week with Nate that I wanted to just reiterate, like now that it's been a week and it's kind of been tried and tested, was the mom money. Like I said, I printed that out. I just went online on Pinterest, Googled or looked up what's a free Play Money app. I just dropped very rudimentarily my picture into that and then printed it out, and let me just say, it has been a raging success in our house. The children absolutely love it. It's kind of taken away the emotional factor in that if I walk into their bedroom and their bedroom's messy, instead of me being like frustrated and, hey, you guys have to clean this up, you need to do your chores, like, how can you live like this? I just go, oh, hey, you threw all your clothes that you took off today all over the floor. Can I have 10 mom bucks? And my littlest one, she calls them Becca Toups money dollars. Mom, can I have a Becca Toups money dollars? But even with her, it's become a great currency with her obeying. Hey, Piper, you had a really great attitude and you obeyed me. Here's 2 Becca Toups money dollars. And so I just give that to her. And the transactional element there, even though, yes, it's to some extent priming my children, it's been really successful. And my 12-year-old son was just, what else can I do to earn some money? Because what I'm doing with them too is that if they earn $50, they can turn that in and get $10 real dollars essentially. And my son was able to put it towards Fortnite, or my daughter wants to order something online. All right, well, if you do your chores, you have a great attitude, then that's going to be fantastic, and you're going to have that money and you're going to be rewarded and see that. So it's been really successful. That's something that I kind of manipulated and have made work in our house, but I definitely would love to hear anything that you guys have going on that's working, a reward system or anything like that is working for your children. Let's see, any other questions? As far as the other relationship in the house besides the children, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what it looks like at home with our spouses, because we're in it right now, right? I mean, I feel like there's the opportunity for so much more strife and so much more fighting and discontentment. But the flip of that and the double-edged sword is there's also so much opportunity for growth, such beautiful growth in relationships. And maybe we haven't spent that much time with our spouses, but we're able to right now because of the slowing down of life and the lack of the distractions and things like that. But in my house, it's been a little bit of both, certainly. I mean, sometimes I sit there and I'm like, if he chews one more piece of ice next to me in bed, but the idea here is that we slow down and we can kind of look internally. I've been reading this book that I really, really love and would highly recommend. This is called What's It Like to Be Married to Me? And I've been through this before, but I'm revisiting this and I'm taking this a step further. And what's it like to be in quarantine with me? Can I get an amen? What's it like? So that's that right there, just thinking about that instead of like, oh, my spouse didn't do this, he loaded the dishwasher wrong, or I've taken the trash out and he hasn't taken it out once this week. It's like, what's it like to be there? Hi, Veronica. What's it like to sit here and to be married to me? Am I nagging my spouse? Am I ignoring the wonderful things that he's done and focusing just on the challenging things or the things that I don't like today because I'm in a bad mood and, I wish I was at work or doing whatever my regular life would normally be, and I'm taking it out on him. It's so easy to take those things out on the person that we're closest to, and that unfortunately is our spouse. But I highly recommend this book. It's by Linda Dillow. It's geared more towards women, but I would challenge any parent, any mother, any father to take that kind of question and maybe journal with it. Order this book because it really is fantastic. But my surviving my husband just texted me on my phone right here and said, I load the dishwasher right, in all caps. So that's an ongoing thing, and I'm sure that's in most households. But really kind of, instead of turning your focus on your spouse and what they're doing and what they're not doing, looking at yourself and like, how can I serve my family? How can I bless my spouse? At the end of the night, I'm trying to make it, did I go through the day? Did I thank him for everything he did that maybe I take for granted? The little things, the fact that he did make dinner, and maybe not every dad out there is making dinner. So really taking inventory and being thankful and being grateful and being appreciative. In the little things, I think this is really an incredible time to revisit what our love languages are with our spouse, and make sure we're speaking those languages. My love language is definitely words of affirmation. I'm an Enneagram 3, and if I do something, I want to hear about it, basically. So if I unloaded the dishwasher, I want to hear, thank you for unloading the dishwasher. I saw you homeschooled the kids today. I really appreciate that. So hearing that, whereas my spouse, he wants time and he wants physical touch. And so making sure I'm slowing down, spending the time with him certainly, and being there and being present, maybe just sitting on the couch and watching a show. Whereas I like to be busy, and if I'm not busy, then I don't even know what I'm doing. But sitting down and sitting next to him, and really just kind of enjoying him and making sure I'm speaking his love language during this time. Somebody else really wanted to know what dating your spouse looks like right now in quarantine, and just kind of being encouraged by that. And it's different and it's hard. And those of us specifically with small children, maybe that only like young children, there's zero breaks. There's zero time. We're not dropping our kids right off at grandparents. You can't get a babysitter, and there really isn't an official date night. But that doesn't mean you can't be completely creative through this time. And we can just kind of enjoy those moments. Last night, and this was with all of the family, but this is something that you could easily do with your spouse. Like, we just went outside and we watched the sunset. That was it. And that's just quiet. You could go sit with your spouse on the bumper of your car while the kids are inside. You know, the door can be open so you can hear them or whatever. And just watch the sunset and have a moment, and maybe just hold hands and talk about your day and slow down and talk to each other. Specifically, if that's your spouse's love language, that's going to be that much more impactful, and just kind of bring that connection back to each other, rather than having this divisiveness and this hard times that we're in, where every little thing just kind of feels that much bigger because we're quarantined and there's all these additional stresses and anxieties on ourselves and on our marriages. So dating your spouse, there's a lot of other fun things. We actually made a charcuterie board together, let the kids watch something in the other room, and sat and just like ate and pretended we were, at a restaurant. I actually just saw somebody else that their kids created a restaurant for them, and served mom and dad dinner out on the back patio, and wrote up a menu and made something. And so just really being creative and taking those opportunities to reconnect and have date night. I joked with my husband too, and he did something in the kitchen, and I came and gave him mom bucks and was teasing him he could redeem them later in a very lighthearted way. But being creative and having fun together, because again, there's so much stress right now. We went out with the kids, and we would never do this. We jumped on the trampoline too, and that's really fun, and that's another level of connection, not just for us with the children, but us together, because sometimes really we are too busy. And I feel like in our typical life, we're more like kind of two ships passing. Oh, I'm going to pick one kid up from school. I'm going to drop one other kid off at climbing practice. And that busyness has been taken away. And it really is up to us what we do with that, and how we can utilize that in our marriages as well. So really taking these opportunities to be together, and to reconnect and really kind of date our spouse, not just survive our spouse here in quarantine, reconnecting and appreciating them. It's important. And then your children will see that too, rather than focusing on your own selfishness and your own, discontentment or whatever. I don't have this. I wish I could have done that. Or you didn't pick this up in the living room, right? And I came out and there's pillows everywhere. It's like, hey, thank you so much for getting down on the ground and playing with the kids. Whereas I just maybe would have come in there and been like, the room's a mess. You need to clean this up. Appreciating those differences that your spouse brings to the table, and why they complement you so well. So focusing on the good, that's what I always tell the kids, focus on the good. And whether that means like at night, maybe writing a gratitude list, maybe just for your spouse, and reading that to them, telling them like, remembering all the things that you initially fell in love with about them. That way your mind is brought to that positivity and that gratitude, rather than just the discontentment, or this wasn't done wrong, or this is why I'm unhappy, or whatever that looks like in your house. But appreciate them every day. On that note, I also had the kids do a gratitude list. I had them write a poem this last week about COVID. So it could be a haiku or a limerick or whatever they wanted it to be. And, they kind of made it kind of silly and joked about it, and that's okay too. But they're able to express what's in their heart, talk about the anxiety. But then I wanted them to write a gratitude list, and that actually went pretty well. So much so, in fact, that I gave them each their own little journals to work with and to write down. So every morning while we're having breakfast and during quiet time, I just want them to journal. Like, it doesn't have to be anything big. Hey, this is what I did yesterday. This is how I felt. Some bigger feelings have certainly come out in those journals. And then some silly things, or drawing pictures, or, what the best part of their day was. I told them there really isn't any structure. I'm not checking this. Isn't for school. It's really just for kind of for their own mental health, and also for their heart health too, because that's always what I'm trying to make sure I'm taking care of first and foremost. If my kids don't come out of quarantine, better students that can recite, all their times tables backwards and forwards, it's going to be okay. But my job first and foremost is certainly to take care of their heart health and their spiritual health, and then their minds. So just making sure we're having that connection and putting connection first in our house. All right, let's see if we've got any other questions. Oh, thank you. Hi, Anthony Lopez. But just bringing it back to the family, and we're always bringing it back to that connection. So maybe if the day isn't going well with your kids in quarantine, or maybe the homeschooling element is just, it's a rough day and you just need to scratch it, it's okay. Let's just build a fort in the living room, or be silly, do a dance party. Think of something just kind of fun that your kids will kind of reconnect with, because that at the end of the day is really that much more important than if they know, who won the War of 1812, because I don't know who won the War of 1812 at all, to be completely honest. But I remember those moments with my parents and with my family when there was that real connection, and I felt really seen as part of the family. Another topic that came to me this week that I really wanted to make sure we really stressed on and talked about are the parents or the families in untraditional situations. I keep talking about, mom, dad, kids at home, we're having all these homeschool activities. Sometimes my kids are fighting, but what's it like really to be like a single mom in this time? And what are those struggles? Do I have any single parents who are superheroes and single-handedly doing this by themselves out there? Because I have a few friends like that, and first of all, my hat 100% goes off to you, and my heart goes out to you, because it's such a challenging situation on a normal day, and then to take this and compound the stresses and the pressures, and maybe, working from home alone with your child, trying to take care of their education. And I just want to tell you right now and give you permission, it's okay. Whatever that looks like for you, and whatever you need to do to kind of survive this time with your child, it's okay. You don't need to be sitting down and doing all the homeschool. If it means a little bit more technology time, that's fine. Just make sure the time that you are spending with your child, you're trying to be intentional and just connecting and making sure that you're really reaching out to them and worrying about their heart health first and foremost. It's so hard for everybody right now. But for those single parents who really, truly are single-handedly trying to do it all by themselves, and probably are getting on social media and then feeling kind of that much more beat up or ashamed, or that level of mom guilt because they're not doing it all because they can't. Because literally you can't do everything that we're being asked to do right now, and that's okay. But what you can do is you can love your child. You can show up for your child every day, and you can do your best. I would definitely recommend for those parents that are feeling overwhelmed in these situations to reach out, not to just sit there and feel guilty and feel overwhelmed, but to reach out to your friends, reach out to other families. I have a single mom friend that, at the beginning of this was like, I can't do this. I'm trying to work from home, take conference calls, support my family. Homeschooling is just not an option. So I just sent her some ideas, basically what my kids were doing every day. I would just text her and her kids on the same thread and be like, hey guys, happy Tuesday. We're gonna just write a gratitude list, and I want you to do 20 minutes of math online and go for a run or get some exercise. And that was me, like, not doing anything above and beyond what I'm doing in my house, but reaching out and loving on the people that I know and that are important in my life. So I would encourage you too, if you do have someone that you know that maybe is struggling, or someone reaches out to tells you that they're struggling, help in the way that you can help. Rod says, PBS Kids Morning. Amen. Amen. And I believe APS is actually going to start broadcasting in this coming week, I believe, if they haven't already, which is great. Putting the TV on, and then maybe just asking your kids, like, hey, what did you learn? What was great about that? Or asking them in the morning, if you're overwhelmed, what would you like to do from school? What's your favorite part of school? and then get that dialogue and that conversation, or what do you miss most about school? And you can pull that out and see what's going on. Certainly it's going to be their friends for sure. And so maybe you do arrange a FaceTime call. Oh, Rod says it is on this week. Good. Well, it's Monday. I'm here. I didn't get on that this morning, but it's on this week. So using those resources, I discussed a few resources last week that I love, but Parent Q, the app Parent Q, CUE, is wonderful, and they have a lot of great tips on there, kind of for first-time emergency crisis homeschool moms or parents, or what that looks like, and those tips are really loose. It's not that you have to follow everything guideline by guideline, but it's like set up something that works really well in your home for your family, for your situation, and adapt that, make it work for you guys and for your children. And then take your children's feedback. Hey, what do you want your school corner to look like? That was definitely one of the tips that I've seen, is setting up kind of a designated school area, so you're not constantly moving their schooling. It's covering the dining room table and you have to move it for meals. Set up a little corner with a desk and maybe print out or put something, let them draw something they missed from their school, and then they can put it on the wall. Make it something special. Put the crayons and the pencils there so that it's accessible for your children to use on a regular basis. That seems like, when you start to think about it, it seems like it would be a no-brainer, but it's not. Most of us aren't educators and have never set up a classroom. So making sure that they have those tools accessible to make them successful. And like I said before, when Alyssa asked me what my tips are for a 4-year-old, coloring, get this out. Like, they can learn through coloring. Hey, and you can, there are really wonderful printouts that are available through Pinterest or through so many other wonderful resources. Like I said, Parent Q, Scholastic Incorporated right now is doing lesson plans online. I follow them on Instagram. Scholastic, like the old book club, and you get $5 and you get to go buy a poster and a smelly eraser, but they're doing lessons plans. I've fallen in love in this last week and a half with Khan Academy. That's KHAN Academy, and I follow them on Instagram. They have websites, and child can really just log in and they can sit on the computer or the iPad and play math games. Literally, some of my kids will literally play for almost an hour on there, and they're learning math, because that certainly isn't my strong suit. I probably wouldn't know where even to begin if I sat down and tried to teach a complete lesson, but they can follow congruent lesson plans and go through them and continue to learn and build on the skills that they've already had at their age level in their classroom, so they aren't losing that progress that we've made. But it doesn't all fall on you as the parent to teach and impart all of that information on them, like an old school time, sitting down at a desk with your ruler and writing on the chalkboard. So using those resources that are available to us to really make it hi Geraci girl, I think. Hello. So using that Mystery Science, I think I mentioned last week, I created an account on there, and that is a wonderful resource. My kids log on, they watch some videos, and then it has a practical application, an experiment that they can do and that they can execute with some supervision. They're at the house that's going to take what they just learned through the video or the lesson about science and then put it into practical application. So that's been really a big hit around my house. Again, it takes that stress and pressure off me, because I'm like, I don't know what 5th grade science looks like right now. It's been 30 years since I've sat through that. But allowing your children to kind of take the lead on that too, because then they'll get excited, like, oh yeah, we talked about this in school, and they can kind of continue on with that. And that also buys you a little bit of time if you have multiple children, maybe to bounce around, or maybe to get some work done, or take a conference call, or whatever that looks like. So, and then last but not least, I've mentioned this like probably 12 times already today, but Pinterest. Just get on Pinterest. If you're stumped, jump on there and you can look up just about anything. There's so many incredible resources available, and things, like I said, the Mom Money, that's just where I found an empty document that I printed out that has really changed the behavioral element, because for me that was the scary part, having the children at home all the time with the fighting and not doing housework or making messes or whatever that looks like. So take those ideas and adapt that to fit your life. You don't have to follow any specific schedule that somebody else puts out, just because Susie, whoever that you're friends with on Instagram, maybe this was her calling in life. She dreamt about being an elementary school teacher, and she's doing all these incredible things. Take away that mom guilt, because this is a time of crisis. And so whatever it is you can do and whatever you need to do in order to survive and to get through the day, your children are going to be okay, first of all. So I want to give you that encouragement. But just connecting with their hearts first and making sure you're leading them in that way, I think, is definitely the most important part. And then try to make it fun. It doesn't have to be terrible. It can be silly. It can be, we do dance parties. We like to do, that can be exercise in your house if maybe you're not getting out and running with your child. But just really connecting with their hearts and having a good time and enjoying this time for what it is, I think, is really important. But I just want to leave today with one more verse. I know we talked about John 16:33 earlier. I want to reiterate that these things I've spoken to you, that you may have peace in the world, that you will have trials, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And so maybe that is something that you just want to have your children memorize and have them work on this week, and so that they can have those things hidden in their heart, so that when they get nervous or they get anxious, that's going to come up. Because honestly, the memory verses have helped me probably as much, if not more, than my children. Sitting down and having those and just comforting myself with the verses and hiding those things in our hearts, and just taking the time to really just love on your children and ask them what it is they're worried about. What are they anxious about right now? How can I help you? Or even like something as simple as, how can I pray for you right now? And your kids may look at you, and then you'll be surprised the really beautiful, wonderful things that come out through it. I had a rough time. Like I said, last week, Friday, I was just kind of overwhelmed with the schooling and everything that's been going on, and I just kind of had to call an audible, and I had them do some reading, and then I assigned them the newsroom story to produce and to develop the Good News podcast. But my kids came to me and were so sweet and like, Mom, are you okay? I can tell you're really sad. And I was like, no, I'm fine. Because you don't want to let on with them that you're having a hard time as a parent. You want to kind of try to keep it together. And my son was just so precious, like, no, Mom, you're not. And he sat down on my bed and he goes, let's pray. And he prayed with me. And that just really touched my heart and really meant more to me than almost anything. So if you can have that connection with your children and you're taking those time to just pray, maybe it's just at the dinner table, you guys all sit around and it's been a crazy day and you're taking your Zoom work calls and your children are trying to get their things done for school now that the online learning distance learning has really kicked in. But if you're connecting at the dinner table, as Lenya and Lindsay talked about on one of their podcasts, that really is also where all that connection happens. And there's so many studies that show that just taking that time, turning off the electronics, having that quality special time with your children and talking about your day or talking about what's going on, or maybe it's just even talking about what your hopes are. When this all ends, what do we want to do? What are our goals as a family? How do we want to come out of this? So having that connection and speaking to them. But I just want to thank everybody for jumping on and for taking the time to kind of have some family talk. Feel free to drop in comments on here, on Instagram, on mine, Becca Toups. Anything you'd like to hear me discuss on family talk for next week, and have a wonderful week.